My Cherokee name is Awe Edohe. Uh, Translated in, I guess you could say, Amy Ernestine Grant Walker. My mother is a full-blood Cherokee, and my dad, she met him when he came here to work. He was from Rosebud, South Dakota, so he's Lakota, and my mom's Cherokee, but they both knew about herbs and medicines, and that's what my dad did. There were people that came to see us as I was a child for many different ailments, even the threat of one man getting his leg cut off because they couldn't heal the sore on his leg, and my dad used an old rusty plow point, heated it up red hot, and dripped fluid on it. I'm not sure if it was a tea of some kind, but it healed the man's leg and he didn't lose his leg. So these are the kinds of things that I grew up seeing, and seeing my mom and dad go out, and I've gone out with my mom together. Maybe some um, um, the bark off of trees, or to gather plants, or to dig up the roots for her to make a tea or a salve. Those are the things that I grew up seeing and being a part of. But when I moved back to North Carolina when I was in my early 20s, um, that wasn't a part of what I was around anymore. Of course, my dad died when I was 10 years old. So Mom raised 8 children on her own over in Tennessee, in the Tennessee Valley. So we didn't even know our relatives here until we moved back here, and we got our mom to come back. And so this is a part of who I am. I'm Deer Clan. And as I gotten older and began to learn more about who I am and what it means to be a Cherokee, I went to Oklahoma when I was 45 years old, and listened to a traditionalist herbal man talk about the values and why we did the things that we did all of these centuries. And that's where I found my identity as being a Cherokee woman. And that's what helped set me on my path of doing the things that I do today and living the way that I live. Because out of that, it taught me that everything has value, no matter what it is, even to the little red worms and all of the creepy crawlies and the four-legged, the winged ones. All of that is a part of what nurtures and takes care of this environment that we live in. And so it behooves all of us to take care of it as well, because if we don't, then we hurt ourselves. And so this is why you see Native peoples fighting to keep the clean water and across the United States, and fighting to not mess with the seeds that we have. That's just two of the things the many things that it's done uh, in the economic structure to make money without any concern or any thought about what's going to happen in the future. Because a lot of those seeds that have been mixed, and you can't save them and plant them the next year because they won't produce, because they've been messed with too much. And so that's what I do here in my garden as best I can. But I was born in 41, so then you can tell by that how old I am. I'm not no young chick, and I ain't as pretty as I used to be. But the beauty comes from inside of who I've become. So this land is the first village of the Cherokee people. It's the mother town. It was a place that if somebody way back centuries ago, if you took somebody's life, then that clan was responsible for taking your life. That would have paid that debt. But if you could managed to get here to this community here, there was no bloodshed here. Could never be any bloodshed. So you were safe. So this is the land that helps me and nurtures me. I tell people this is my church. I come down here with a problem that I need an answer to. And there's times that I've gotten information that I needed to tell someone else. There's over 1,000 of my ancestors, our ancestors' graves here on this land that starts way back up there, close to a mile back around. Well, they lived all in here at one time. And once the Europeans moved in, then they began to lose the land and chop it up and put fences and say, this is mine. But this land doesn't belong to anyone in particular. It belongs to all of us. And when I'm gone, maybe my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, somebody will pick up and do what I did here on this land as best that they know how. And who knows what other kind of invasive plants that will be growing down here at that time. I've been fighting this Johnson grass since I've been here on trying to plant and raise food. But if I understand correctly, Johnson grass isn't a native plant from here. Maybe it's like the kudzu. And so the kudzu has found a place and it's taken over. So maybe everything will be covered up in kudzu in 100 years from now. Who knows? No trees, just kudzu. But anyway, the ability to eat clean food that's raised here, it's hard. When I first started out here, the man who raises tomatoes and beans and squash and I don't know what else across the fence, I didn't realize they were spraying that weed killer that Obama outlawed, but now that this new president is here, he removed that restriction. But I got cancer, ovarian cancer, in 2008, and so I'm cancer-free for the last 12 years, and I've been able to come down here, but it's not as easy for me to stay here 10, 12 hours a day and work anymore after having chemo and other treatments for my cancer. So I just come down here and do what I can, and I got relatives and friends, and Tyson has friends that come and help, but they love coming here on this property because it has an energy that is not just found anywhere, and it's because of our ancestors that lived here and the traditions that they practiced created this special, peaceful energy that is here. One day I was right up here picking some of my corn in the fall, and this man from New York drove through, and he stopped and wanted to know, what is this? And I said, well, what do you mean, what is it? This piece of land. I came down here about a week ago, and there's something here. And I said, well, I explained to him, this is our mother village. And he said, that's what it is. He said, there's something very special about this place that I had to come back. And I thank you for giving me the answer to what I was looking for. He said he was visiting a friend over in Franklin. And so I never got his name, but he said he was from upstate New York. And so this is some of the things that happen here on this land. And I try my best not to spray, I try to use manure, animal manure when I can. And but this year I bought fertilizer and put fertilizer down But I'm letting a part of this land rest, the 4 acres, so I'm just planting 2 of it. And then Tyson has planted 2 or 3 rows on this side. But he's helped keep the weeds down and stuff while I couldn't be here, while I was in hospice with my daughter. And so, but these are the things that nurture me and keep me going. And I hope that I'll be able to work for another 10 years, a little bit anyway. Maybe I can just bring other people down here and tell them what to do and enjoy the good food. But I raised my corn, the corn and the green beans that I raised, we call them tender October beans, and flour corn. And the only cornmeal I use is from the corn that I raise. And I make hominy out of some of the corn. Or I get the shiny part off of each grain by cooking it in wood ashes. And some of the elders in my community buys it from me so that they can continue to cook it further and make hominy, homemade hominy. And then my October beans, tender October beans, they don't have any string on them, but they have a full bean in there. And to me, there's nothing else that has that flavor of that kind of bean. And so I'm very protective of those 2 seeds that I have. And so this is basically where I'm at right now, is to trying to save what beans plants that I got. The elk has been just eating them down to the vine, the basic vine on it, and I don't know if I'll get much out of it. So I hope that I'll have a few beans, enough at least to have seed. You can gather beans and you can string them up on a string with a needle and thread, hang them up to dry when they're green beans, and they're called leather breeches. And so there's your dry bean right there. Or you can let them turn yellow and then shell them out, and then you have just that. But the leather breeches has the hull and all to it. It doesn't. Maybe before you leave, we'll go out there and pick a bean or 2, and I'll show you that it doesn't have any string on it. You can eat that bean no matter what stage of growth it is in, right up until it turns yellow. You can cook the hull and eat it if it's a traditional, true October bean. And we can make bean bread out of it. That means you cook your beans like you would a pinto bean, and then you take your cornmeal and prepare it, and then you dump it boiling hot into the meal and stir it up and make either a ball, or you can get a corn blade and wrap it, and then when you cook it, you drop it in boiling water.
Or hickory leaves.
Yeah, hickory leaves. I've even used oak leaves. So and the leaf gives it a flavor. And then you cook your meat. Salt pork is usually what we eat in today's time with it. And potatoes and greens, wild greens, or the turnip greens, whatever kind of green you've got. But in the springtime, we go out and gather wild greens of different kinds, which gets us out in the woods. They gather ramps in late February, and you can smell a person coming who eats ramps. It's almost like garlic. Maybe it's stronger than garlic. All right, here's yeah, these don't have any the bean part ain't grown yet on, well, yeah, and see they get this little red on them. I'm thankful for the people that has come and done what they could. Here's one that's been knocked off and something's eat on it. This is morning glory. I just put them in a pot with a little water and put in anything that will give it flavor. You know, like bacon grease, bacon, pieces of fried cooked bacon. Yeah, there's another bean, but it's on the ground. Something has broken it off. So rabbits love the beans. I only planted this one row, and Tyson and his friends planted this row for me later. I take my tractor and make a row, and I drop 2 beans at a time on here. And here's one that's a little bit more mature. See, it's got a little bit fatter bean in it. And then it don't take long to cook them. In the summertime when I'm out here, I would get me some corn and beans and go home and make a little bit of cornbread and cook some roast ears, get some tomatoes. But that's pretty much all I can. But boy, they've been going on down the rows. They've just been really laying into them in the last day or two. And see, a green bean will make different runners out and start climbing, and they'll get really fat. And you get quite a few beans off of it. But these, I'm hoping that these will still make beans on here. But yeah, look, there's a few on there. But I'm not gonna get what I should be getting, because they've done chewed it down to where they need the leaves to get the sun. See, there's no string on them at all. And so you can eat the whole bean. This is not full, because the little bean in there make it fat, make the pod fat. See, you just take a needle and thread. You have to get good sized thread so it don't break, and you can string them up like that long. So that's quite a few beans. Be a mess on if you got a pretty good sized family. We don't normally talk about it with just anyone, because you don't understand. And I'm not sure if you guys understand.
I'm sure we don't.
The depth of how that we understand the energies and the workings of everything. That there is nothing in a box. Absolutely nothing. Everything that is here on Mother Earth is needed for this earth to work at its optimum. But over in Europe, you know, it was the women that were the medicine people and they help people, but yet they keep burn them up at the stake for being witches. And we know who was managing the governments and things back then. It was the males, and life has really gotten out of kilter. Okay, the corn has to get totally hard in order to do that. But before it does, my corn is getting ready to come into the stage that what we call roast near stage. And the Cherokees will get that stage of the corn, and it's only about 7 days that it'll be in that stage. And then it begins to get hard. But a long time ago, they would take a piece of tin, stick nails all in it, and then bend it over with a sharp point sticking up on a board and nail it down. And then they would take the ear of corn and scrub it over that. And of course, it would be real milky, and they would make a bread out of that. And that's called, Tyson, what's it called? Grit bread. Yeah, gritted bread. And then whenever you let it get hard, that's whenever you shell it off the cob, and I build a fire under it and heat my water, and then I put my corn in there, and I just put as many ashes in there as I want. The more ashes, the quicker it eats the little shiny part off of each grain, and then that's when the work starts. You wash it and wash it and wash and so you end up with certain kinds of animals that just grow here in this part of the world. But a lot of the things that we had and ate, it fed us. And the nuts, the chestnuts, the walnuts, the hickory nuts. I will gather hickory nuts whenever I can and crack them. And boy, you talk about hard work and cut your fingers up, but you dig out the meats and you take and beat them up in a what we call a canona, which is about a piece of oak that big, and you dig a hole down in there, and then a smaller hole right in the bottom, and then you've got your stick that has a big part up here, gives it weight, and you beat it, and you can make your corn in there, or into cornmeal. You put your nuts in there, and you can beat them up, and of course the oil from them, you can just make a ball out of it. But the community would help gather the corn in, and it was in a corn crib that the whole group of people who lived in that village could go and get the corn and use it for whatever they needed. So if there was no food, everybody starved. But it wasn't the corn and things like that. You could not just say, this is mine and I'm going to hang on to it, whether anybody else. Because one of the things that our people do is when somebody comes to visit, you feed them. That's just a thing that, our cultural thing, that you have to feed the people, whatever it is you have. And so corn is a big part of that. And of course we didn't have flour, so corn is our first mother, corn woman. And so that's how important corn is. That would love to see nothing but white people live here and stay in power. And that's not going to happen, because there's people of color, more of them around the world than there is just the people with white complexion. And so, but you can't go into town anywhere now without seeing a black woman and a white man, or vice versa, together, that's got children. And it's becoming more and more of people of color that's around the world. They're everywhere. And so uh, even the Arabs and the people who live in those countries, because of their specific type of religion, they fighten the others and want to be the one in power over somebody. But we can't do that. It's it's fast moving to a place that we are, and maybe that's what this virus is doing, is forcing people to recognize that. And it can be a curse or it can be a blessing. And each one of us has to decide which one it is for each one of us. And are we willing to change or not?